Welcome back, guys, to this video. Today we're doing TryHackMe, and we're going to take a look at recovering Active Directory room that has been released recently. So in today's video, you're going to put yourself in the shoes of an incident response specialist or analyst, and you're going to tackle over the task of recovering an infected Active Directory machine. So basically, you're going to activate the incident response plan. So you have a call from your colleague telling you that they're witnessing some weird stuff happening over the Active Directory machine, or maybe their machine that is a joint or part of the domain controller. So you want to take a look at this infected machine, and you want to perform an immediate action to isolate, then maybe eliminate and recover the machine. So basically, you're going to activate the incident response plan. The first step in the incident response plan is to preserve the evidence. So you don't want to modify anything on an infected machine, right? Such as the hashes, checksums, the volatile memory. All of these things can be used for an evidence against the attacker, right? So the first thing you want to do, don't perform live analysis on the machine. So first, we're going to take backup of the machine, because all of the analysis that is going to be performed will be performed on a cloned copy of the infected machine. Previously, we were doing incident response on Linux machines. So we were taking a clone of the machine using maybe a volatility or memory dump, and then all of the analysis takes place on a separated machine used for the analysis, and the analysis is done over the copied or the cloned version. While the live OS, we don't perform any analysis on the live OS. So we go ahead here. Since this is a Windows Server machine, we need to perform the backup using a Windows Server local backup service. So using backup schedule, backup once, we click on that, and we go through the options. So we're going to select full server backup. If there were some external storage attached to the device or the domain controller, you're going to go for custom, and here you're going to select bare metal. But since this is a lab machine, these things don't appear here. So we're going to go back and select full server. So local drives, next. Exactly, since this is a lab storage, the lab scenario, we're not going to be able to do the full backup wizard. So but it's pretty much straightforward. So select the backup, the local drives, and you're done with it. It's going to create a copy of the Windows machine or the domain controller, and then you're going to take this copy and mount it on a separate virtual machine for the analysis. That's the first step. You want to take a clone of the machine. Backup is one of the methods. Now the next step, after you have taken the backup of the infected machine, you want to isolate the machine from the network. So you make sure to disconnect the machine from the network and the internet. You don't want any communication with any C2 server while you are doing the analysis. Alright, so we took the backup, we isolated the machine from the network. Now it's time to perform some analysis. Okay, so we're gonna assume that right now we are performing the analysis on the cloned copy. Okay, right now we mounted the cloned copy on maybe another machine, and we used VMware for that purpose. Right now we're gonna use some scripts to perform some enumeration, and we want to identify what are the steps the attacker took to compromise the machine. Now this is beyond the scope of this room, but some steps can be taken, such as identifying the actions that the attacker has taken since they have compromised the machine. So we're going to use PowerShell, specifically Powerview. So you may have heard of Powerview before. We use Powerview under the context of Windows privilege escalation before. Since Powerview is a script that displays information about the domain controller, the machines joined, the logged on users, and all relevant stuff that would help you identify attack vectors, you can do the same when you are performing an analysis on the infected machine. So Powerview here can be used to get relevant information on the machine and what happened. We want to see changes on the users, changes on the permissions, and changes on the other objects such as the group policy objects. All of these changes, most definitely the attacker acted on these changes. So you want to find out what are these changes, such as new users, new permissions, or modified permissions, modified group policy objects. We want to find out what the attacker did. So let's first make this font a little bit bigger. So I go ahead for 18, maybe much more, 28 or 24. Okay, that's kind of good. All right, so we want first to find out. Let's go to my notes here, and I'm over the instant response notes. If you are subscribed to channel membership, you already have the notes, so you can follow with me on this. So we're going to use auditing Active Directory with Powerview. So first we import the module. Let's import the module. Okay, so let's go to desktop, cd Powerview. We navigate to the directory that stores the Powerview script. This is the Powerview script. Now we're going to import the module and specify the script name. So we have this error. Okay, so let's do that. Import module. Okay, this way we imported the Powerview. Now let's go ahead and run some commands. So git net domain controller will retrieve information about the domain controller. So after we imported the module, we only need to run the cmd lets. Let's copy that and get information about this domain controller. So this is the main forest, THM local, the current time. All of these are basic information about the domain controller. And this is the domain, THM local. The roles of the domain. Okay. Now let's go ahead and find out more information about the logged on users. So if the attacker was already logged on when we captured the backup, or when we created the backup, we'll be able to display the user that the attacker has created. Why do we believe that the attacker could create a user on the infected machine? Because they want persistence. The attacker wants to get back to the machine or connect to the machine whenever they want. They cannot just compromise the machine and stay there forever. Most probably they're gonna compromise the machine and then disconnect for a while and then come back to the machine. To do that, they will plant backdoors, malwares, scripts. And another method of creating a backdoor access is creating a separate user for the attacker. So if we are able to list the logged on users, okay, we're gonna be able to find out the user that attacker has used to perform persistence, if they perform persistence, of course. As you can see, we have many users that are logged on. These are all of the logged on users at the time of creating the backup. Here we can get the active sessions on the domain controller. So if the attacker has an active session at the time of creating the backup, it will show up here. So we have only one active session right now because it's the administrator. Here we can select or get the list of the computers that were logged on. Let's see here. Let's try without the filter. And we have, as you can see, many computers. So usually we want to execute this command with a filter, because as you can see, the output is overwhelming and cannot be skimmed manually. So you want to select some attributes and display and use the command or the filters to display these attributes. So we we used select name here, but most probably there is no name attribute. Yeah, there is name. Let's use this without double quotes. Yeah. So if we, as you can see, we see the names of the computers, and that's very much important as well, because we want to see all of the active computers at the time of the compromise. So you can see we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 computers at the time of running the backup. Alright, so now before we proceed further, let's go ahead and answer some questions. So what type of backups can be obtained from the Windows Server backup utility? A for one time, B for incremental, C for A and B. You can take both one time and incremental. As we saw in the wizard, one time backup will take the backup of the full system, okay, including the main bare metal OS and additional drives attached as external or internal partitions. B, incremental, will first create a full backup copy and then will only take backups of the changes that happened since the last incremental backup. So basically, first in the incremental backup, you take a full backup, okay? And then the next day, the next backups or the next backup that happens the next day will take the backups of only the changes. The day after the next day will take the backups of the changes that happened since the last incremental backup. That's the difference between incremental and differential. By the way, you can Google them. So basically, the Windows Server backup utility takes or enables you to take both backups, one time and incremental. How would you launch the Windows Server backup utility through the run dialog? It is wb admin. Is good practice to isolate the infected network infrastructure for detailed network monitoring? Yes, we did that. Okay, how many machines in the domain can you find when using Powerview? We saw that if we use the command get computer, select name, we will be able to see the names of the computers. So there are 11 machines. What's the name of the utility in Windows that displays and keeps track of all events? It is the Windows Event Viewer. Alright, now let's go back. Okay, and here we want now to find out more information about the users created or modified after a specific date. Okay, so here we want to list the users created, but what if we want to see the users that were created after we detected the compromise on the machine? So let's say the machine was compromised maybe 2 days ago, or we have detected that the machine was compromised 2 days ago. So we want to see all the users that have been created after that date. So we want to use a CMD list such as this one. Get add users. Get add users alone will get us all the Active Directory users. As you can see, we need a filter. So the filter we were going to use here is the enabled users, the active users, and the users that were created after a specific time. Greater than is after this time. Okay, you can use other filters such as less than or equal. And we want to list properties of these users, such as the last logon date, the SAM account name, and other objects information. So we're going to take this command and apply it. And as you can see here, guys, there is one account that was created after 10 April. The name of the account is Evil Guy. So the name was descriptive enough because of to just create context in this challenge. But most probably or most definitely it's not going to be evil guy in real scenarios. Okay, so after that date, which is the date we discovered that there was compromise on the machine, we found out now that there was a new user created. Most probably this user was created to establish persistence for the attacker. So the attacker then, after they compromise or after they have compromised the machine, they can then log into the Active Directory machine using the details of that user they have just created. They can use WinRM, they can use remote desktop, it depends. Alright, so the questions here, let's see. What is the email address for the user evil guy? So we only have the username. What if you want the email address? Let's see, what do we have? Okay, so when you are stuck, you can refer to the documentation of Powerview. This is the link URL, and here you can see the miscellaneous and RICE functions that you can use for your purpose. For example, we have this one, get domain user. If we execute this one, come on, give me a break. Okay, let's copy that one more time. So we have many users here. We want to filter for the evil guy. Okay, evil guy has shown up here. We can use this cmdelete, guys, if you want. Select, and here we actually select which property we want to be displayed. If you have overwhelming entries, we can, for example, we are looking for the email, so we can select mail and select and display the mail of the users. We have only one mail. It means that only one user has their email address registered. It is the evil guy. Hack@crypto. What is the total number of users logged on after this date? We're gonna turn back to get AD users, but we're going to modify on the date and other attributes. Let's see here. So here we're going to remove the created and keep the last log on date property and modify on the date. So removing Monday and keeping the month December 01 2022. So after that date there was only one logged on user. It is the evil guy, so you have only one user. Now, what event ID will be logged if a user is removed from a universal security group? Alright, so now we use Powerview, guys, to identify the users that have been created along with the date and time. After we have identified the username that attacker created, now we want to see other changes that the attacker might have implemented on the machine, such as group policy changes, security events. All that can be viewed using the event viewer. I'm gonna close Powerview and turn the eyes to event viewer. So there are many events we can investigate. We cannot memorize them all, that's why we have to note them here. So these are the security events: group policy modification, user created or added, user successfully authenticated. I have just noted down them here, so you can access them if you have something to use. So here we have the group policy modification. Let's see this one, 4720, user added or created. Let's see if we can catch the evil guy using this event ID. So you go to Windows Logs, and we highlight security, go to filter, current log, and let's see. So indeed, guys, as you can see, the evil guy or the username that attacker created shows up here under this event ID. You can also track logons, see when the attacker logged on using this event ID, clear filter, and again filter current log. And we see many logons. Of course, we're not going to be able to sift through all of this. Process creation, very useful if you are analyzing malware. Alright, let's see the question now. The question is asking what event ID will be logged if a user is removed from a universal security group. So user member added, member removed from universal security group, it is 4756. So we have two events. What event ID? It is 4757. I used 56, right? Let me check this. I think there is a mix-up here between these two. So the member removed from a universal security group, it is 56. Added, the member added corresponds to event ID 57. Yeah, so I think I have to correct this. So member added, and then member removed. Okay. Alright. So what is next? So assume that you have analyzed all of the attacker actions on the system, including the users they created, the group policy changes. Let's take a look at the group policy changes. So group policy modification. Why would the attacker perform changes on the group policy? Because the group policy in Windows Active Directory is responsible for setting restrictions on the user to accomplish security and protection. When the attacker wants to relax the security settings, such as bypassing script execution in PowerShell, bypassing some restrictions on some executable files to be run, they will want to do that on the group policy. So that's why they would resort to performing changes on the group policy settings. Therefore, when you are investigating an compromised Active Directory machine, you want to take a look at the modifications on the group policy. How to do that? There are specific tools, but definitely Eventviewer would be a help. So let's take a look at these two event IDs. Clear this current filter and filter for this one. As you can see, we have audit policy change. All of these are supposed to be changes on the event viewer. Let's take a look at this one. Task category is audit policy change. Security audit policy was changed, and the category is subcategory indicates authentication policy change. And this is the details can be shown here. We cannot see which user. We can see the user. It is the as you can see, account name is recover. We want to see if there are changes performed by the evil guy. So if you go back to the filter and we select evil.guy. So there are no changes performed by the evil guy using this event ID. Let's take a look at the other one. Clear the current filter and filter current log one more time. So for now, we're going to select all users. So we have 4 events. All of the policy changes were performed by valid accounts. as you can see, administrator. Now, does that mean that these changes are performed by the real administrator behind the account? It doesn't mean that, because the attacker could have performed these changes or the policy changes before they have created their own separate user account. So you still have to investigate these changes. If you see a valid username, it doesn't mean that the change has been conducted by an authorized person who owns this account. You have to make sure, or you have to verify these changes, because also the administrator account would have or could have been compromised when the attacker first got access to the machine, and this is very much happens most of the time. When they escalate the privileges, they would take over administrator account, and from then they create another account. So some changes are performed by reality performed by the attacker, not the administrator. This one is domain policy changed. It has to do with the password policy. Password policy modified. Alright. So after you have pinned down all of the actions that the attacker performed on the machine, and now you know the cause of the compromise, it's time now to perform cleanups. Okay, the first thing to perform in a cleanups is to restore from a trusted backup. Okay, so you should have a backup schedule running all the time. You will restore from a trusted backup, and the backup should be a backup date, or the restored date should be before the date of the compromise, or the date of the or at the date of detecting the compromise. After I've restored the backup, you want to perform some necessary changes, such as resetting the passwords of main users into Active Directory. So this is the group policy management. So from here we want to find out what are the users that or whose their passwords need to be changed. First we go to domain controllers. This is domain controller group, the computer group, and here we can see the organizational units, IT, management, marketing, research, sales. You want to reset the passwords of critical users under these OUs. And here are the users. So we want to reset the password of the administrator, that's for sure. You want also to reset the passwords for other accounts, service accounts, such as the CarePros user account. You also want to take a look at who are members of the domain admins and reset their passwords. All of the critical accounts or accounts that are part of critical groups or privileged groups, you should change their passwords as a second step after you restored a backup. And you want to remove any users that have been created without your knowledge. So you have restored from a trusted backup, you have performed a reset on all the accounts or the critical accounts, and the next step you want to perform malware scan on the machine, making sure that the machine is not infected, and you want to forward all of the logs to a SIEM solution such as Splunk for further analysis. Let's see if there are other questions to answer. We are done with this room. So what's the command to perform password reset operation for the computer in the domain for the computer? So this forces a computer which is locked onto the machine to change the password. You can use the CMDelete. What's the current security vulnerability that involves you abusing CarePros service ticket code? It is the silver ticket abuse. You can Google it, which means you have to, while you are resetting the passwords of the users, make sure to reset the password of this account to prevent this attack. Okay, the type of the attack that allows attackers to impersonate the domain controller and receive forward requests on behalf of the domain controller. This is the desync attack. And if you have been watching my videos on Active Directory penetration testing, you must have seen how desync attack works and how to detect them. So when you are inaugurating the machine, when attacker first gets access to a machine, they they take a look at the privileges of the users they have compromised, and if they see impersonate privilege enabled, they will be able to perform desync attack. Is synchronizing time on all network devices important to correlate logs on different devices? Yes. Post-recovery actions, let's take a look at the view site. So here, what are the steps to take when you are first recovering an infected machine? Now, if you have been watching the video carefully, you'll be able to answer these, or be able to arrange these carefully without any hassle. Let's start first with this one, taking a backup of the compromised domain controller. So why do we do this step? Because we want to perform the analysis on a cloned copy of the infected machine. We don't want to alter any evidence on the original machine. The next step is, after we took a backup of the compromised domain controller, we analyzed the cloned copy, we actually now understand what happened and what caused the compromise. Next, we want to perform recovery steps. So we want to reset the passwords of the critical accounts, such as the admin accounts. I also want to see what are the changes performed in the group policy. If you are able to find out what are the changes performed in the group policy by the attacker, we will be able to restore these changes back to the original state. And we want to forward the logs to a central location, such as a Splunk SIEM solution. And lastly, we want to prepare, to perform something called lessons learned, which is the last step in the incident response policy. If you don't have an incident response plan in place and you have been compromised, you will take this step: prepare a cybersecurity policy and disaster recovery plan. You will put a plan on what are the steps to take when an incident happens. So that's pretty much it, guys, for this room. I hope you enjoyed the video, and most definitely I'm gonna see you later.